All right, you should have a fully functioning lobby now, one where people can show up who are interested in playing Othello or Reversi and can interact and can do some matchmaking. At the end of our previous video tutorials, what happened is that two people that agreed to invite and accept an invitation got kicked over to an HTML page. In this sprint, what we're going to do is work on that new HTML page where the game is actually played. So my name is Professor J Patterson, and this is an overview of the Reversi board interaction that we're going to be working on next. Architecturally, what we're going to cover are these key points. We have a server.js program, same one that's been running all along, that's going to keep track of the game board for us as well as the lobby participants. The game.html file, a new file that we don't have yet, and a main.js client file, one that we already have but are going to reuse, are going to send commands to play tokens. So when you play a token on the client, main.js will send a command to play that token. The game.html and main.js will be responsible for redrawing the board when the server sends a change to be drawn, and will manage chat messages. Rather than being in the lobby, which is the name of the chat room that we were in lobby.html, an active game is going to be in a room with its own unique game ID that two people are allowed to be a part of. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. Right now, along the bottom, we have three different HTML files we're envisioning. The first two have been completed, index.html and lobby.html. What we're working on next is going to be game.html. That's going to originate as a copy of lobby.html, and then we're going to modify it. Main.js, the JavaScript that enabled the functionality of the lobby interaction, will be the same file, literally the same file that we'll be using for game.html interactions as well. One way we've written it in such a way that it will be useful in both contexts. For example, the chat messaging system is going to be almost the same. Whichever HTML page you're working with that incorporates the main.js file, it will be communicating over the internet to the server.js program. That might be running on your local host or it might be running on Heroku. Your main.js will send play token commands to the server. The server will receive them, update the game board as appropriate, will respond with a play token response. It will also periodically send game updates if your partner, the person that you're playing Reversi with, makes a move, your browser will be updated. And when you make a move, the opposing player's browser will be updated. And then finally, if the game is complete, you'll get a game over signal as well. So this is kind of the overview of sort of the file views that we're working with. We're also going to break out our CSS into a separate external style sheet since we've got enough styles involved in our game.html that's worth a separate file. All right, so game.html. There's a couple things to look for here. Now remember, this is HTML, so it's defining a document object model. And what we're going to be setting up are some places where we can put content. We need a node in our document object model that will tell the user what color they are. For example, I'm white or I'm black. We're going to label that with the ID myColor. Be on the lookout for where we do a node to place a quit button. We'll identify this with the ID of quit. We'll have a place where we can place the score so that the player knows how they're doing and can see it very quickly. We will identify two locations, one where we'll put the sum of the white tokens and one where we'll put the sum of the number of black tokens. We'll have a node to place the game over notice that will be replaced when the game is over. We'll call that with an ID of game over. And then we will, on our game board, we'll place 64 different nodes that correspond to the different positions on our game board. The overall game board will be labeled with ID game board, and then each one of those places where you can place a token will have an ID of number underscore number in the format of the first number being the row that you're looking at and the second number being the column that you're looking at. And we'll use computer science notation, which is where we start with a 0 and end with one less than the number of rows or columns. So we'll have 8 rows and columns going from 0 to 7 and 0 to 7. And then finally, we're going to have a place for the messages that will put ID messages, and that's similar to what we had before. So those are going to be the way that we allow our JavaScript to hook into the document object model so that we can update the state of the game. Meanwhile, in main.js, what the client-side JavaScript is also going to be doing is going to be keeping track of the last known board. The server is the one that has the official board, but main will keep a copy of it so that it can display it. When the server sends a new board update, what main.js is going to do is update what color that this client is playing, which shouldn't change once it's assigned for the first time. Change any tokens that have been updated from the other player playing, adding click functions to the empty spaces so that the black player or white player can play when it's their turn, and also counting the score and then displaying it in white sum and black sum. When the game is over, it's going to put a message on the playing board with a button back to the lobby, and it'll get that notification from server.js. Server.js will be responsible for creating the official game board when game starts, when someone enters the game room, and will wait for play token messages to arrive from the players, and will update the board and then broadcast the changes to everyone after it receives them. Server.js will be doing a lot of error checking to make sure that the clients are behaving properly. What we aren't going to do in this particular sprint is we're not going to make sure that the players take turns. We're also not going to make sure that their plays are in legal locations, and we're also not going to do any flipping of the captured tokens. What you should imagine this sprint is about is trying to get, like, as if you had a physical board where you can just put tokens anywhere and no one's preventing it. You're not necessarily playing the game right now. You just have the mechanisms for which to play the game. This is like the technical logic, and later on we'll add the business logic, which are the rules of the game. All right, let me show you a demo of where we're going, and then we'll just jump into it. All right, let's take a look at that. All right, so this is where we're heading. Heading to a game where we can have several different clients all connecting to our same server. We might have Albert enter the lobby. We might have Betty enter the lobby. We might have Carlos enter the lobby. And we might have Dimitri enter the lobby. They're all there. They can all chat. They can all see each other. And they can invite each other to play a game. So for example, Albert might invite Betty to play a game, and Betty might accept that invitation. They'll disappear out of these two lobbies. You scroll up here and you can see the game between Albert and Betty, and they can play in their different spheres. There's no rules, so this is just playing the tokens down. But at the same time, there can be a separate game going on down below here where there's a different state being kept track of. Eventually, the game will be done. Well, we're not really checking the game to be completely done. We're just checking to see whether the game is full right now. You can see we're not enforcing turn taking or anything like that. And when the board is full, we'll get a game over command. See, that shows up at the top. And we'll return to the lobby. We'll come back to the lobby and everyone shows back up. You could return to the lobby prematurely, and everyone's back in the lobby. And then you could do a different game where maybe Albert invites Dimitri, and so the play is sort of across the screens here, where now the connection is left and right rather than up and down. And when we do chat, the chat is only between the two rooms that are playing the game. So you can see it's constrained back and forth that way. So that's where we're heading for this sequence, and it'll take a little bit of work and some technical oomph, but we can get it done.